Definitely didn't want to make this video, guys. Definitely didn't want to make this video. I first saw the news on Jason Green's Facebook page, and he had said that Ace had passed away because he was basing it on Ricky Rocket's post, which I saw, where Ricky was saying that he had heard rumors that Ace had passed away. I put out a video and immediately got a bunch of comments from people saying that Ace, in fact, had not passed away, that he was on life support, that there was a brain bleed, that there was a possibility that he'd pull through. So I took down that video, and then but look, 74 years of age with a brain bleed, on life support, not a good situation. When I first discovered Kiss, I was probably like 12 years old, and I bought the Love Gun record. Actually, I bought the Love Gun cassette, and I really, really liked it. And granted, when I was 12 years old, I didn't know a lot about music, but I knew that I liked Kiss. I knew that I really liked Kiss. So after that, probably like a week or two later, I bought one of the solo records, and happened to be Ace's, and I just freaking loved it. And then I made the mistake of buying the other 3 solo records, and I didn't like any of those. Peter's was just awful. No offense to Peter. I love Peter, but that record, you couldn't give that record away for free. But Ace's record was phenomenal. And then from there, I purchased, what did I purchase after that? The Comets. I bought the Frehley's Comets, first and second sighting. Love those. And then from there, I just started buying other music, you know what I mean? But I always was an Ace Frehley fan. And I saw Ace and Peter on the Bad Boys tour in 1995 at the Button South in Hollandale Beach, Florida. And they were so great. And I saw Ace with Richie Scarlett, and I just couldn't get over like how great this guy was. And then I think 4 or 5 months after that, I went to the Kiss convention at the Ramada in Miami. I remember it was like $100 to get in. And people told me, why are you spending $100 to go see that? And I was like, because you just don't understand how much I love Kiss. And then shortly thereafter, they did Kiss Unplugged, and then they did the first tour together. And I'm looking a little disheveled. But I was just a diehard from then on. I just couldn't stop listening to Kiss. And and that concert, I remember I went with my brother Tony, and we had sort of decent seats, but nothing crazy. And Ace was still dropping to his knees. Some years later, they told him not to do that anymore because I think it was wrecking his ACLs, his knees, his joints. He was just not able to do that anymore. But for that show in '96, his guitar was smoking. He was dropping to his knees. He was wailing back and forth. It was just like you had seen on the Alive record in 1976, 75. And it just did something to me. It did something to me. It was great seeing Ace without the makeup on a club tour, and it was great seeing Ace, just jamming out at an arena, a stadium. And when he left the band, well, before he left the band, he did the Psycho Circus record, which I really feel was a mistake because they only let him have one song, Into the Void, which I think is the best song on that record. It's the only song that Peter played drums on. Those guys didn't really want a reunion. Those guys had to have a reunion. Revenge was a good record, but they shelved Carnival of Souls. They put it out much, much later. They put out Alive 3, which barely went gold. They put out Kiss My Ass, which was like a tribute with Garth Brooks and Sonic Youth, and I don't know who else was on that. That wasn't really a Kiss record in my estimation. They were running out of gas. I think it was another Elder 1981 Creatures kind of situation. They needed this reunion tour. They had to have it, and they had it. Ace left, and then Peter was fired, basically. But the thing is, though, is that for 20 plus years, Ace wanted back in. And when those guys were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they had the opportunity for one show only to get together in full makeup, full regalia, just bring the house down in Cleveland, and they refused to do it. They would not do it. Then they did the farewell tour, the real farewell tour, the final shows. They would not bring Ace and Peter on stage. And those guys have to live with that. Those guys, honestly, they robbed the fans. And why? Ace wanted to do it. Ace just wanted to make sure that he was paid what he deserved to be paid. And the same thing with Peter. And those guys didn't want to, dig into their pockets and pay them what they deserved. And it's sad because, Ace had some really, really good solo tours and really good concerts, and, he was part of some really cool bills. He put out a lot of great records, Anomaly. He put out the tribute record with all the classic songs that, by the way, he brought Paul and he brought Gene on. He had so many different versions of Fractured Mirror. I like the cover Fox on the Run. I love that song. He had the song, I think it's called 13 Picks, which is like, just a lot of good stuff. He signed with E1 Music, and he just really, honestly, he didn't release records like in Kiss makeup or, singing Kiss songs. Ace Frehley was not living off of the Kiss whole thing. He didn't rely on conventions. Kiss conventions. He didn't rely, none of that. You know what I mean? He didn't rely on that. He was an established solo artist. He signed with Megaforce Atlantic. He didn't need Kiss. In fact, in the 80s, he did things to rival Kiss. Like, for example, Hide Your Heart. I really, really like Ace Frehley's version of Hide Your Heart a lot more than the version that made it to Crazy Nights, I believe, or maybe Hot in the Shade. I don't know which one of the two it was on, but the Kiss version of Hide Your Heart was good. The Ace version of Hide Your Heart was better. And they begged Ace not to release it because they knew that he did a better job than they did. And it's just one of those things. I'll never forgive him for that, personally. And I'm not making this video to attack Gene and Paul, but honestly, I think people like Eddie Trunk should really hold their heads high. People like that, they should really hold their head high because they didn't abandon Ace. They didn't abandon Ace. They were loyal to Ace to the very end. And Ace put out some really, really good records. And in fact, Ace was putting out music that sounded more like Kiss's vein than Kiss itself. Ace didn't release a grunge record like Carnival of Souls. Ace didn't release a doomsday record like Revenge. Ace didn't release stuff like that. Ace released rock and roll records, whether it was 1978, whether it was 1987, whether it was 1989 with Trouble Walking, or it was in the 2000s or the 2010s. He released records that were in line with everything he'd always stood for, everything that he always did. He didn't try to be like the Yngwie Malmsteen or the Vinnie Vincent, if you will. He never tried to be like a scholarly musician. He played rock and roll. He had the bracelets and stuff, and if they made noise on the fretboard, they made noise on the pickups. He didn't take those things off. He didn't lead a 9-to-5 lifestyle. He didn't drink, wheatgrass juice or whatever. And now he did kick drugs, and he did kick alcohol. And he, like you said, when he got inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it's not about willpower. Try battling diarrhea with willpower. And Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine was laughing his butt off because that was Ace. And of course, Gene and Paul, they had those looks like they just wanted to kill his microphone or something. But it was the same thing as 1979 with the Tom Snyder interview. Ace was not going to be silenced, and Ace was not going to be told what to say or how to say it or what to wear or anything like that. He was a rock and roller, just like Bill Aucoin said. Ace was Ace. And Ace, I think, I think Ace didn't see the bigger picture, because when he voted to get rid of Peter, he screwed himself over, because now he had no voice. When they got rid of Peter and they got rid of Bill, it was Gene and Paul running the show, and Ace was just kind of like just there. And how long could he put up with that? 2 years maximum? He had no voice. They were doing records he did not want them to do. And having to tour with those records, that was his, image. That was his name on those records. He didn't want to be part of that. He didn't want to be part of Unmasked. He didn't want to be part of The Elder. They were trash records. I mean, he held his nose for Dynasty because, look, it was disco. He liked going to Studio 54. They had a big hit with I Was Made for Loving You. So he was able to hold his nose, but that wasn't a rock and roll record. And if you know anything about Kiss, it was during Dynasty Unmasked that they had like 9 and 10-year-old fans that were brought to the shows by their parents. I mean, that's not what Ace was about. Ace was in a gang in the Bronx. Ace was from the streets. Ace was a tough guy, and he played rock and roll that was edgy and it was dangerous. It was New York City, and they became Ringling Brothers, you know what I mean? And so that's why he left. And then they put out all those ridiculous records in the 80s where Gene looked like a woman and they had spandex everywhere. Ace never wore any of that crap. So the reality of the matter is that, Ace was probably the most authentic rocker out of everybody that's ever played with Kiss. It's just the reality of the matter. And I think that's why people gravitated to him the way that they did. You know what I mean? And the one thing that he did, the Howarth record, as it's called sometimes, the first sighting record, or the second, I think it's the second sighting record. Todd had a huge hand in that record, and it was more keyboards and guitars. And what did Ace do? I mean, it's a drastic move, but he fired his whole band. And then he resurfaced with Richie Scarlett. He always had Anton Fig by his side. And Trouble Walkin' is probably if he had put out Trouble Walkin' instead of Second Sighting, who the hell knows if he would have ever rejoined Kiss in the mid-90s? Who would have ever, I mean, look, none of that matters right now, but I just, the what ifs, can keep you up at night, but it's one of those things, guys. Like, honestly, like I don't want to knock on Gene and Paul, but man, Gene and Paul, you guys really did Ace wrong. And I think now with Ace being, no longer with us, you guys need to retire his makeup. If you want to have an avatar, okay, whatever, but Tommy Thayer should never, ever, ever wear, TommyThayer.com or whatever his website is, nobody goes to that website, but the thing is, he should remove the face. Just to, out of respect. He's not going to do it because, he's not going to do it, but I don't know, guys. I wanted to make this. I made a video. I made a couple of videos, a couple of reels. I just wanted to make them because I just wanted to make them. I'm an Ace Frehley fan. I'm not going to get huge numbers for any of these videos, but that's not what it's about. I think everybody should be making videos about Ace, putting up pictures, putting up your favorite songs, your favorite records, your favorite experiences, your favorite memories, because I think that's doing right by Ace. You know what I mean? Just like today's Thursday, October 16th. I hope that this carries on for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but really, really strong, so that wherever you look online, you see the Spaceman, you see Ace Frehley, you see Jendell. You see everything that was Ace Frehley, because I think it's important, just for posterity's sake. It's important for us. I hope that the mainstream media continues to run these stories. I hope that Gene and Paul and KissOnline.com do fitting tributes, Peter Criss as well, and everybody else in the Kiss family, because anything short of that would be an absolute outrage, in my opinion. Ace deserves it, and I want to contribute to the cause by making my live video, by making videos, by making shorts, by posting stories and posting pictures. I think that's very, very important. So I want to pay my respects to the Spaceman, Ace Frehley, original founding member of Kiss, lead vocalist, author of so many great songs, including songs that he didn't even sing on, like Parasite. He didn't sing Parasite, but he wrote Parasite, and you can't go to a Kiss concert and not hear Parasite or Shock Me. These are songs that you're gonna hear, you have to hear, and He might not have been like the, the Vinnie Vincent or the Bob Kulick or whatever, but he was Ace, and Kiss would not be Kiss without Ace Frehley. So just want to pay my respects. Thanks, guys.